time of year, only one can be champion. Let's go playoff racing! I said, hey, hey, oh, oh, hey, hey, there's no surrender. Let 'em hear my battle cry.
iRacing, you wanted the best, you got them for abreast. Often imitated, never duplicated. The greatest show on dirt, the World of Outlaw.
This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
We are now past halfway into the season, and not a single driver has been able to beat Dudignon to the checkered flag in the broadcast races. Long tracks, short tracks, fast tracks, slow tracks, everything has been thrown the Frenchman's way, and yet nothing seems to trip him up. All that's left is to pit the drivers against the ultimate driving test, the Nürburgring. This is a circuit that is the great equalizer. So long, so technical, and so punishing that all bets are off when the drivers grid up. Will anyone else be able to taste victory today? We'll find out soon as we get ready to watch round 7 of the Lotus 49 Grand Prix Legend Series, and you'll see it all live on the Global SimRacing channel and the iRacing Esports Network. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Johan Vandenbelt. Behind the scenes is our director Sean Crackers Ambrose, and is using cameras provided by Dougie Beer. Johan, even though the track might be the one to finally trip up Michelle, I guess it could just as easily gobble up all of our other competitors.
Absolutely, Joe. There is a reason that this track is nicknamed Die Grüne Hölle, or the Green Hell. This almost 21-kilometer track is world famous in Formula 1, GT racing, and everything in between. Now, racing here in the Eifel Forest already started in the beginning of the 1920s, but this track was finished in 1927. It features several different layouts, including the Nordschleife, the safer Südschleife, and the recently quote-unquote built Nürburgring. Now, on the Nordschleife, we will race today, a track where Formula 1 visited 21 times between 1951 and 1976. A track that features 154 corners, including the several famous ones, like Flugplatz, Carousel, and Flansgarten. Now, due to safety reasons, the track disappeared from the official Formula 1 schedule, but in iRacing, we can relive the good old days. We can imagine that we're back in 1967 with the Lotus 49 blasting through the trees. But before we drop the green flag and send our competitors underway, let's take a look first at some of the corners of the Nordschleife from onboard the Lotus 49.
All right, we've got Billy Bob Wright in the GSRC Lotus 49, so let's do a lap around the Nordschleife. The Nord curve has deceptively early braking because of its downhill entry, so be on your guard. From there, we're going to skip ahead since there's not enough time to show you a full lap. The 49 is unique in that it's a car on iRacing that can actually get air at Flugplatz. That makes the double apexer that follows even more terrifying. Just up the road, you'll get another little hop just before the braking for the Swedish cross. Hug the left side as best you can so that you can set yourself up for Ehrenberg. You don't want to put a wheel in the grass on the right anyway, since there's almost no coming back if you do. Expect a few pass attempts into here throughout the race. Then, if we jump ahead to compression, that leads us directly into Oudener Forst. The tight barriers in this series of S's means you really don't want to mess around. Races end incredibly quickly when drivers lose it on entry. Like most S's, ideally you want to set yourself up for each subsequent corner through here. Once you get around the final right-hander, open up the throttle and let it fly. Farther along at the bottom of the hill, X-Mule may prove tricky in putting the power down. The way the track crests on exit tends to take the grip away. From there, bring the car across the track and then lift to make it through Laude Links. You can take it faster, but you want the car settled for the heavy braking into Bergwerks. Try not to early apex this uphill bend. Being able to straighten off the exit will pay off in speed climbing the mountain. Now, Bravery Corner is scary in most cars, but in the 49, you'll be lifting even before the braking zone just to keep it on the right line. The bumps get emphasized with this car's lack of downforce, and so much of driving the car revolves around dealing with that. And then, of course, there's the infamous carousel. Spot your brake marker, swing it in from the outside, and hold a consistent speed around the banking. Be easy on the gas coming out because the car won't grip quickly. Across the top of the mountain, you've got another spot where you'll get airborne with Flansgarten. Don't push your luck because you need the car planted when you land to get through the uphill right-hander. Over the hill, you've got another scary little hop just at this left kink. It's easy to get out of shape here. Then, there's the fast entry into Swallowtail, which is another place where losing control is almost always a race ender. Slow the car up as you guide it through the right-hand sweeper. Then, try to carry speed over the crest of the left-hand bend. From there, it's a short burst to the mini carousel. Coming off of here can be tough since the Lotus doesn't like to accelerate and turn at the same time. Stay to the left for the right line into Gallow Hill. This extremely long corner requires patience and practice to figure out just how soon you can put your foot to the floor. And the sooner you can do that, the better because it dumps you onto the Dotting Hoa. Another thing unique to the Lotus is that Antonius Beach isn't quite flat out. If this kink scares you, you're not alone. That sets us up for Tiergarten, which presents the difficult task of slowing the car and changing direction multiple times. Once you reach Hohen Run, if you don't have control of the car, you're probably going to be hitting something. Keep it tight to the apexes, and then don't forget that turn 13 is deceptively slow. Hopefully you kept it all together and have now finished a lap around the Nordschleife.
See a little bit of the lap around the ring, and we'll see all of it once we get going. But let's take a look at the points, starting off with the F1 Championship. Michel Dudignan, his 2 drop weeks mean that, well, he is able to take maximum points. Even if he didn't have the drop weeks, he would still have maximum points. He's dropping wins on both of them. Eduardo Prado is only 30 points behind thanks to those drop points, so he could still get in this thing and try and challenge for the championship. Really, the only big change we've had is Mick Claridge coming back and jumping back up into the top 5. Gary Teal drops down 1 because of Mick joining the F1. Let's take a look at the F2 Championship. Johan?
Yeah, there's a new name on top there, and that's the one of David Rossi. David really profited last week from several drivers not being there. This graphic is still showing P2. Hugh Haycox was one of the drivers not being there at Indy Road. He used one of his drop weeks. There are a lot of British drivers in the top 5 there. Steve Hogan and Philippe Urquhart there as well. Graham Petullo, he's still in the top 5, trying to save some of Australia's honor and close the gap down towards the drivers in front.
And in case you've never watched this series before, let's jump ahead to the race details because we seem to be running out of time here. We are in round 7 out of 12. They're doing 5 laps around this track. It is open setups and it pays down to 15th. Let's run you through our starting grid for the day. It is going to be Michel Dudignan on the pole with Rob Olenek in second. Then it's Tommy Unhola, followed by Eduardo Prado. Steve Bycroft will be starting 5th. Ove Trangere 6th, and Gary Teal will be P7. Steve Hogan will be 8th, and on the inside of the next row is Hugh Haycox. Then it's 10th for Andrew Barry.
David Rossi starts in P11. He's flanked by Ian Haycox. Philip Urquhart starts in unlucky P13, flanked by Telmo Amaral. Colin Bentley, he starts on the inside of row 8. Next to him is Colin Coker. Jasmine Beach starts on row 9 next to Philip Blake, and Daniel Cedro and Jamie Hall round out row 10.
21st belongs to Alberto Pellegrini. Glenn Bakulis in 22nd. John Ambrose will be starting 23rd, and Craig Spitzer in 24th. Nenad Ivanovic starts P25. Andrew Ang 26th, and Johnny Bell in 27th. Then it's Logan Walker starting 28th, The inside of the next row will be Masson Pascal, Andre Bruno 30th, Don Good 31st, and the engines are starting to rev, so we are getting ready to go racing. Already they are on their way down to the north curve. This is going to be a bit messy potentially because we have 34 cars out there running here today. So far, so good through the first few corners. Up at the front, though, currently, it is actually Rob Olenek somehow who snuck into the lead ahead of Michel Dudignon. The question is, can he hold him back? It is Tommy Unhola running in third. Eduardo Prado cycles into fourth place. A bit of a slide from Steve Bycroft, who rounds out the top 5, but so far, so good, I'm seeing, Johan.
Yeah, me too. Everything a single fall at the moment. Done good. He had a horrible start, however. He got away clean, but he got also away with a false start, so he will have a black flag they has to serve very soon. But what a start from Rob Olenek. We have to take a look soon at how exactly he got by Michel Dudillon, because this is exactly the start he had hoped for. However, the Frenchman is very quick, though, around 3 car lengths between Dudillon and Olenek at the moment. Unhola cannot follow it. He's just looking from the popcorn position. Next corner is a tough right-hander. Dudillon can try and move there.
We've got a big accident. Andrew Ang is involved. Number of cars. I see John Ambrose is in there. Looks like Jody Selfin got involved. Craig Spitzer. You're going to see it from for Colin's view. This was just over Fluklots, it looks like.
Yeah, they all happened in front of Colin. He basically went over the crest and saw a bunch of cars spun in front of him. A lot of smoke as well. Several cars tangled up. You mentioned some of them. And once one of the cars goes spinning there, there's not really any avoidance that you can do except jump on the brakes and just pray that you go through it properly. And this means that basically the second or the final third of the grid has been separated from the rest. I see another spinner a little bit after that. Andrew Barry also went around. A lot of drivers involved in that accident. However, all the way up front, Rob Olenek, Michel Dudillon, they are still going. There's still nose to tail at this moment, Joe. With the Frenchman following very closely. He wants the P1 position back.
It certainly looks like he's being held up slightly. And with some of these long straights offering a bit of a draft, I'm not sure that we'll be able to see Olenek hold him back. Could still hold on to the tail once Michel gets by. They've pulled a slight gap behind them to Unhola in third position. We've got another car spun off. That is Telmo Almiral a little bit farther down. He's having to wait patiently for drivers to go on through before he finally gets a gap, and now he's going once again. It's like just out of miss, hit, miss, but he's got some severe damage once he gets going. We're looking at the replay to see exactly how he got in this position. When we come back live, we'll have to watch a pass for the lead as well. There's miss, hit, miss. Oh, just a little grass on the exit. That's all it took.
Yeah, and a little grass on the exit. Well, that was not entirely what happened with Rob Olenek. He had a little curb in the middle of the corner. You go to a replay maybe of that instant, because he had a little bit of curb around a minute ago. That unsettled his car. That was everything that Michel Dudillon needed to get by Rob Olenek. So now we have the Frenchman in P1. You go to replay of that now.
Let's see, because they were heading up Castle Chen. So I'm guessing this is Bergwerks where they are currently, and you're right, yeah. Just clipped that inside. Michel pounced. He wasn't even going to wait for the draft to get by on this portion, and that is actually really sketchy through there. So that was brave stuff from the number 1 car. So we come back live. He's already making good on this clear track because he's 8/10 ahead of Olenek.
Yeah, the corkers of the bottom. What you say, it is a sketchy place to overtake, but it's also, you have a lot of places on this track that are quite a bit quicker than there, so it's probably one of the preferred passing positions for Michel Dudillon. This way you could get by cleanly. Meanwhile, you can see on screen Rob Olenek, he's just not able to follow the Frenchman closely. The gap has already increased to over a second. Rob Olenek is just falling away now. Meanwhile, P3, that battle is heating up. Eduardo Prado, the Brazilian, is putting Tommy Mikonhola under pressure.
As we ride on board with Eduardo. looking up ahead. He, again, only needs to stay close until they get to a long, flat-out portion of this lap. There are a few in this car, believe it or not, as hairy as it is to race around here. They work their way over Flansgarden, back up the hill. They hit the Stefan Beloff S's. They have lost about 1.2 seconds up to Olenek, so not drastically far behind. They could still run him down. So we jump back to sixth place.
Yeah, that's another nice battle that's happening at the moment. Gary Thiel and Over Trangerate very close together. Interestingly enough, Over Trangerate started in front of Gary Thiel before this race, but Gary Thiel on the first lap of this, we're only still on the first lap. You don't think about how long this track is, but Gary Thiel got by the Norwegian. He's trying to drive away a little bit, but he just is not able yet to really distance himself from Over Trangerate. Over Trangerate stays close, is able to put pressure on Gary Thiel there. Once they go now onto the really long flat-out bit of the track, I think that Over Trangerate might even use a little bit of draft to get the P6 position back.
On to the Darino Hoa. Looking to see if he could pull that slipstream, but Gary Thiel seemed to have gotten himself a pretty good exit. It's only just now starting to reel him in. You can see behind them that Hugh Haycox and Steve Hogan are also getting close to one another and making a pass. But Rob Olenek seems to have dropped off of the draft just enough that Dudignon has broken it. And indeed, it is Tommy Unhola instead who gains on second place, pulling Eduardo Prado along with him. So the battle for second closing in.
Yeah, interesting that Rob Olenek is just not able to close the gap to Michel Dudillon, but at the same time also not able to distance himself from the Finn and Brazilian behind him. Meanwhile, the battle between Gary Thiel and Over Trangerate, we were looking at it a little while back for P6. That one is still very close. Only 2 free car lengths between the two. Over Trangerate got a lot closer over the Duttinghunger. Not close enough to really try a move just before the start-finish section, Joe.
Staying within touch. They come up to High Oaks now. The right-left that leads onto the straight coming up to Flugplatz. However, not completely flat out. They go through a little kink. And then the infamous rise where these cars actually get airborne. Look at that! Up into the air, both of them 4 wheels off the ground. And both manage it successfully this time. But look at the run from Trangerate. Is he brave? Does he try to run it through up into the Swedish cross? He lifts before he gets there. Middle of the track, just no way to go. It is too narrow through here. Maybe a pass into Ehrenberg. He stays close behind. He keeps it down to the inside, tries to outbrake him, but there's nothing doing.
Out of Ehrenberg, there's not really a good overtaking opportunity now, because now it will be a bunch of left, right corners. It is difficult there to go side by side. Over Trangerate has to wait just a little bit more, but this will be positive for him. He knows that he is quicker than the car in front, but at the same time also frustrating for the Norwegian, because Steve Bycroft, that's the driver of the top 7, the only one of the top 7 we haven't spoken about, he's driving away from both of these drivers.
A little bit farther back, don't forget the mid-pack has some battles. 11th is contested between Ian Haycox and Jamie Hall. And if they start battling, David Rossi, Daniel Sadro, and Alberto Pellegrini are all in a train behind them. So this could get very interesting very quickly.
Oh, but there's problems there. Sadro, hard crash there. David Rossi as well, and I think that Pellegrini is involved. A lot of drivers are spinning around there.
Shows you how hard it is to avoid incidents.
Yeah.
Well, and actually it was two separate incidents. How bizarre.
I think what happened was David Rossi got a little bit of oversteer. Daniel Sadro saw him slowing down, but by slowing down, by jumping on this brake, he spun around himself. Now he can continue. But it seems like Pellegrini was the one involved that just couldn't avoid David Rossi. And he had hard contact with him.
I believe all 3 are still going.
David Rossi is out, yeah.
Yeah, oh, well, back up to 6. It is still Teal and Train Grade trying to sort this one out, but they have reached Kesselchen as they climb the long uphill towards the carousel. Train Grade starting to gain. Ooh, much braver through there. Oh, but he's going to be squeezed off track. You cannot stay flat out with your wheels in the grass, and Ove Trangrade has to give up the ghost at that point. Now through Bravery Corner, big lift through there. Both of them managing to go through, but that was hairy.
Praying for Klosterval, very fitting there, but almost over Trangrade. Pulled it off with 2 wheels over the grass. He has to give in, however, through the carousel corner. This is one of those corners where if you're very good at it, you can win a lot of time on your opponents, maybe more than in the quick corners. Another one of the carousel corners here. Norwegian, he seems close, he seems quick, but actually making that final pass, that last little percent that he needs, he's just not able to get it.
It's that Scandinavian blood. He certainly seems brave today, willing to go 2 wheels into the grass in order to try and make a pass. But now that they hit the highest portion of the circuit, it's all downhill from here. And Ove Trankerade is hounding Gary Teal all over this course, looking for a way by. Vipperman looking a little bit shaky. Gary Teal, some mistakes here and there. The car weaving back and forth. And we're going to come down into Bruchen now, and once again poking his nose every which way. Ove Trangrade just desperate to get by.
And it's just not working for him at all. They're going towards Flansgarten around this area. Ove Trangrade, he has better racing lines at almost sees. He goes way wider. He uses a lot more of the track than Gary Teal in front of him. He's just not able to use that extra momentum, that extra track space into more speed and more momentum to make that final pass.
Heading on board, you can see the bumps and the elevation changes. That suspension is working overtime. Another big crest there where they get incredibly light, and Ove plugged up behind Gary Teal through the Stefan Beloff S's. Then it hits Swallowtail, a swift right-left, the car slowing as it goes. And I think Daniel Sadros had another problem this time. He's had to tow, and multiple cars involved in this one. It was Pellegrini again and Barry.
Yeah, it all started with Andrew Barry. Maybe focus on him. 3 drivers that actually had incidents earlier in this race. Andrew Barry lost it, and Pellegrini and Sadro were so close by that neither of them could avoid it. And Andrew Barry, he really was the one causing that all. And you said that Alberto Pellegrini, he can continue, and Andrew Barry, luckily for him as well, we go now to a replay of the incident above the orange car is Barry. He just loses there. So first is Pellegrino and then it's Sadro, all piling into each other there. Andrew Barry is now also parking his car on the side of the road. He has too much damage as well. That means the 2 drivers are knocked out of the race following that crash.
If we come back live, Gary Teal not only lost the position to Trangrade, he had a wild moment. This is definitely worth a replay. It's not often that you can come into Tiergarten, put wheels off the track, and still survive. This will be a great view from on board. Watch the right side of the car. Woo! Oh, it was through Antonius Beach is where he went off. Wow. Car is doing, I want to say, around 170 miles an hour at that point, and he managed to hold on to it.
Yeah, not a lot of times that you go over the grass there and actually keep it out of the wall, so you can actually continue. Good stuff there from Gary.
Prado is also, managed to get by Tommy Unhola for 3rd here, Johan. You saw this happen on Dottie Nerhoa, it sounds like?
Yeah, it was basically the same as we saw just now between Ove Trangrade and Gary Teal, just a little bit more cleanly on Duttinger Her. Eduardo Prado choosing the right side out of the draft and very clean around the fin. Neither of the cars really going over the grass, maybe half a wheel dipped into there. But a little bit of a calmer pass, so Eduardo Prado now to P3. Now I'm curious to see if Prado can, one, drive away from Nico and Hola, and second of all, close the gap to Rob Olenek. The gap between Prado and Olenek at the moment is around 2 seconds. But Prado has been stuck behind Unhola for a while, so let's see if he can move himself further up the podium. Looking at the championship though, he needs to do that if he wants to stay close to the Dion.
Right now, Prado's not pulling away at a high rate of knots. In previous cases, we've seen once drivers have gotten past someone they're battling with, they've disappeared off in the distance. Let's stay with this, but I can tell you the Trank rate is quickly dropping Gary Thiel after he's gotten by. But the Brazilian certainly has the fin tucked up behind that gearbox and is not able to make inroads. He's just now starting to pull about a 7/10 of a gap away from as they weave through miss, hit, miss, and Tommy Unhola with a wheel off himself. That's certainly going to lose him a little bit of time.
Yeah, Prado will love that, because that means that the pressure behind him is going away. Meanwhile, let's take a look at P9. That's a battle we haven't spoken about. Steve Hogan, he's fighting against Philip Blake at the moment. What a race Philip Blake had. I think that Philip wasn't really happy with his qualifying time. He started way down the order in P18. That's not really a position that we are used to Philip Blake seeing, but in the race Philip is making up quite quickly though. He already is up 8 positions and he is hounding Steve Hogan now for another position.
As we ride on board, or did ride on board with Hogan, looking back at Phil Lake, they come into Brideshall and up towards X Mule. Oh, and somehow Prado just re-lost the place. Ooh. We saw a mistake a little bit earlier that handed over the lead in Bergwerks, and it happened again, this time though with contact on the wall from Prado.
Yeah, it's not very heavy contact. You can see it there from on board with Unhola. Prado just taking too much speed through. It's going to probably misjudge it. It's a very easy part of the track to misjudge it. You have several right-hand corners and you think that you have one more to go, but you're already in the final one. We have to break a lot more than the few before that. I think Prado was caught out by that. Luckily for him, only small contact with the wall. And looking at the battle at the moment, it doesn't seem like Prado has any big damage that is really suffering. To be honest, he's putting immediately Unhola under more pressure. The gap between them is only 1.5 car length. Unhola's mirrors are full with the Brazilian. Oh, Prado almost loses it there. Wow, what a save from him.
Oh my goodness, so many moments in this race so far. Prado clearly pushing as he also puts wheels up on the curb as they come up to Hedwig Heights. And I'm kind of shocked that he didn't get more damage from that hit. He's awful lucky. He's retained 4th and looking to get that 3rd place back. Now into Ashbrook. Oh my goodness, he is climbing all over the back of that car and eager to get by.
Yeah, I'm starting to wonder a little bit if what I said is actually true. It might actually be that Prado has some suspension damage, which basically knocks the alignment of his wheel a little bit. So he has to keep his wheel at a certain angle to go straight. When you have that at a normal track, that's already very frustrating. But if you have it here on the Nordschleife, that's even more difficult with all these corners in quick succession. I think that he might be struggling with that. At the moment though, it doesn't seem like it's affecting him that much because he's following in very close proximity.
But stay with this battle, but an update for those wondering. Michel Dudignon has pulled out 10.5 seconds over Rob Oldedik. We're only on lap, we're on lap 3 currently.
And that's really something that Dudignon was showing in practice as well. He was around 8 seconds clear from his next rival in practice, and he just shows that he can have that race pace as well in the race itself. But it is the Nordschleife. It's always a track where the disaster looms in every corner. We can maybe go to P9 again. The battle between Philip Blake and Steve Hogan. It's still the way we left it a few moments ago. Those two drivers are very, very close. Around 1.5 car length between them at the moment. And you can see Philip Blake following there, dropping it back a little bit.
Oh, and we got to come back to the battle for 3rd because Prado got the run on the Dadi Nurhoa. And there you can see he's able to slipstream by. If he's got his wheel slightly cocked, he certainly is able to hold it steady as it flies along. at 195, 196 miles an hour through Antonius Beach. So he's going to get that one back. He's now ahead of Uhola. They both weave their way through Hohenron and back through turn 13 onto the front stretch. Uhola taking a peek to the inside. He wants to get this one back. Now down in the north curve. He outbrakes him, but he's a little too hot into the corner. There goes the position right back within a few feet. Let's watch this one again from Unhola's perspective. He thought he had something there. Wow, that was close sneaking through there.
Scandinavian drifting there from Unhola. Shame that he actually couldn't put up a little bit more of a fight to stay closer. The gap immediately to 1.2 seconds between himself and Eduardo Prado. Meanwhile, Philippe Lake, he also won a position over the Dutch Unhola last time around. He got by Steve Hogan. Let's go to a replay of that overtake. Very simple overtake, however, not a lot Steve Hogan could do there. But over the Dutch Unhola, Philippe Lake just cut into the draft. A little bit of weaving of the car in front, a little bit of weaving of Steve Hogan there. Philippe Lake choosing the left side, getting past. Just a very, very clean overtake from Philippe Lake. That's already 9 positions that the Brit has won this race so far. And the gap between him and Hugh Haycox, that's quite a sizable gap, around 3 seconds. There's still 2 laps to go, still around 15 minutes of racing left. So Philippe Lake has to win 3 seconds to see if he can win 10 positions this race here in Germany.
He is very clearly left Hogan behind. You could see the gap between those two. Remember, that was just a small portion of the lap ago that he managed to get by, as we are down to 2 laps to go. Looks like Craig Spitzer is our next victim of the ring, and this one happened in Hohenrand at the pit entry. In fact, this was horrible timing for poor Craig.
Yeah.
He found one of the few places where you could hit a tire barrier around here.
I mean, better the tire barrier than the concrete or the metal barriers there. Just a little bit too much speed through the corner there. Going with his wheels over the curbstones and then losing control. And luckily for him, in one of the softer barriers here on this track, he can continue though, but he loses a position. He drops down to P16.
Do you know what faceplant is in German? I'm curious.
I'm not gonna try that. I'm afraid
Okay.
I'll insult some people there. It feels a little bit like that for Greg. Luckily for him, he can continue. So it's maybe a half a faceplant.
Yeah. Now, down in 17th, don't forget Jasmine Beach and Glenn Baculus. Now, have they traded positions just recently? Because they just came off the Dottie Hoa. And that was actually Jasmine Beach handing the position over, it looks like. She was just incredibly slow on the Dottie Hoa. Excuse me, no, it wasn't Beach. It was Baculus handing it over.
Yeah, strange occurrence there. Glenn Baculus driving around with 7 minutes 30 lap times. He's not that much slower than Jasmine Beach. Those two drivers are on quite similar pace at the moment. So maybe Baculus just wanted the pleasure of driving behind someone a little bit, being able to follow someone a little bit. That of course can help you on a track like that. You can see where the driver in front has his braking markers, where they're steering in, and that can help you just survive a little bit longer. With 1.5 lap to go, that's of course one of the things that you want to do here at the Nordschleife. A lot of drivers I see at the moment as well back on track that had problems earlier in the race. I see Philippe Urquhart back on track, Robert Reynolds, I don't think he had a problem, but he's still driving around. Philippe Urquhart, he's driving around at P27, currently on lap 2. He's one of those drivers that had, was involved in that big lap 1 crash that we saw that took out several of our drivers. Luckily for Philippe, he can go back out on track and score some extra points for the championship.
Yeah, I'd say there's so much extra track that you could get out and have some place to yourself just to kind of run and get some either safety rating or poach some positions as we look at the battle for third once again. Tommy and Holland not dropping off with Prado. The only two that we've seen battling that actually seem legitimately close on pace to one another and has given us a great tussle for the final podium position. I know it says 2 to go, but around this track, it really needs to read something more like 1.5 to go left for these drivers. is just so long around here.
Yeah, and you're mentioning their last lap times. The lap times difference between Unhola and Prado, less than 1/10 of a second. Now, I actually want to involve another driver because Steve Bycroft, he's not in this battle at the moment. He's around 3 seconds behind this pair. If you include him, these three drivers are within 2/10 of a second of each other, with Steve Bycroft slightly quicker. I think that if Unhola and Eduardo Prado start to fight a little bit in the final lap, especially in this infield section, and just kill a little bit of their lap time, it will be Steve Bycroft winning a lot. We saw a car there spun around in the opposite direction. That's the car of Philippe Urquhart. He had some problems a little while ago. He's waiting his turn to turn his car back around.
Yeah, he just wants a clear bit of track, so we'll let him be and not embarrass him anymore. But currently our battle for third working its way through the mini carousel and up to Gallows Hill, one of the most important corners of the lap. A good exit here will pay dividends all the way down the Dardanelles. Now, what can Prado and Unhola do with this corner as they finally get the cars to stretch their legs and get the speed 60, 170 miles an hour as the engines wind up?
You can see Andrew Ang just had a crash. We don't have to go to that. He smacked the barriers quite hard, but he can continue. Meanwhile, I am focused on this battle with Unhola and Prado because the gap between them is quite big, to be honest, Joe. But you can see that Unhola just has so much more momentum, around 10 kilometers an hour quicker than the car in front. Is closing in, but he's running out of road here. Prado is still in front of him, and Unhola is not close enough to try and maneuver as they go to the start-finish section. Past the pit entrance now, and it's still Prado in front, around 3 car lengths at the moment. Not enough space here with the final lap that they're entering now to put it side by side, but the finish is close, but he needs to be a little bit closer 1 lap from now if he wants to overtake Prado in the last possible moment.
All of this is taking place behind first and second, which are separated now by 15.5 seconds. There is our leader, Michel Dudignon, putting another dominating performance on as he flies through Flug Platz. And now working his way through Cottonbourne towards the Swedish Cross. He has been just unstoppable, and he's on the final lap of the race. All he has to do is make it around just these few more miles to take his 7th checkered flag of the season. 7 wins out of 7 races if he can do this.
Yeah, it is incredible consistency, incredible dominance from Dudignon there. But there's still a nice battle going on behind him, 4P3, Eduardo Prado and Unhola. Now, interestingly enough, Eduardo Prado, he's not driving away at the moment from Unhola. The two are still really, really close together. 2 car lengths as they're going. I think this is through Arenberg. Out of that corner, Unhola is still very close, but now, we mentioned it before, this corner of sections of corners, just quick left, right-handers, quick succession to each other. Difficult to put it side by side though. Unhola is close. He's very aggressive on the corners there. Might actually get almost a corner cut penalty there, the way he's doing. He's looking there left and right, trying to surprise Prado, trying to get by him. Prado is driving defensively though. He's not using all the track that's available to him. He's actually looking at all the heavy braking markers, just defending his inside, closing his inside. He knows that an attack from the fin is not far away.
Boy, it's going to get fascinating once they get onto the Dardanelles, but they got a long ways before they do that. Question is, Unhola going to try something a little bit sooner than that? Potentially. They now swing down into the Spiegel curve and then through miss, hit, miss. Oh, and a slide from Unhola. He manages to catch it. He loses a little bit of critical time, though. He's going to have to make that back up and get back to the gearbox of Prado. But what a save from the Finn.
I think this was exactly the same mistake that Prado did a few laps ago, just misremembering in which corner he is in, taking too much speed in that corner, and then having to step on the brakes last moment to avoid the wall. The Finn did it, however, but like you said, Joe, he loses very, very valuable time, and the gap between Prado and Unhola has increased to around 1 second.
He's going to get a little bit of that slipstream. I think he'll manage to pull back up to them now that they head through Bergwerks. and on to the long run up Kesselchen. Another spot where the drivers pick up a lot of speed and they are flat out for a relatively long section of track. Having to just feather the throttle through these few kinks, and now you can get fully on the power. He's lost that time enough. I think that he's not gaining all that much.
Yeah, it seems like that draft, that little bit of slipstream that he had to Prado, that really helped Unhola to stay close, and now the gap has increased to 1 second. It gets more and more difficult for the Fit to stay close. You can see on the bottom of your screen the actual current gap, 1.3 seconds. So the Finn is losing connection. Looking ahead of them, there's not any traffic as well that can throw some extra wrench in the mix. These two drivers really have to let this battle be finished on actual skill and on actual race pace. And Unhola is just losing a little bit by a little bit to Prado.
And Michel Dudignon currently working his way through Brunchen, it looks like. YouTube corner, sometimes referred to as, with many a fan lined up taking footage on the ring and then into the ice curve. There's not much left to go. Down in 10th position, Hogan in another battle, but this time it's with a different Brit. It is with Jamie Hall instead.
These two drivers are close. Jamie Hall made up a lot of time last lap. 4 seconds he was quicker last time around. So he definitely has the pace advantage on Steve Hogan. And then it's a difficult question. Are you going to try it here? Are you going to try to get by here and then just try and distance yourself before you go to the Duttingerhoer? Or are you just going to use all the slipstream available to you then to finally realize that pass? These two drivers are very close together. Around half a second, Jamie Hill is trailing Steve Hogan.
We watch those two weave their way along the mountain. Boy, these shots really show how little room there is on either side of the track to have a mistake. Just no runoff in this old school style track, but we need to go to Michel Dudignon because there's just a handful of corners left to go as he lets that Ford-Cosworth engine unwind one more time up the Duttingerhoer. He's got 21 seconds over Rob Olenek. We asked whether or not anybody will have anything for the Frenchman. That answer is a firm no today. Olenek managed to get by on the first lap, but there are opportunities to pass. Dudignon took them when he needed them, and he got back up to the front, did not look back from there. Through Hohenron, just about to lap Robert Reynolds up ahead of him. Reynolds trying to pull off so he doesn't have to do an extra lap. No, he is going to do an extra lap because the victory goes to Dudignon without overtaking him.
And let's go back to the battle of PT and Steve Hogan and Jamie Hall are still very close together. There are around a minute left to go for these drivers. They were a minute behind Michel Dudignon. Just a quick update. Hugh Haycox just had a little spin. He loses one position to Philippe Lake, but he can continue. He's still in front of these drivers. Jamie Hall and Steve Hogan, they're coming across Hugh Haycox if he has a little bit of damage, but they're coming out of the last corner now as well, onto the Duttingerhoer. This is what we talked about, Joe. This track will decide who will finish in the top 10. Steve Hogan is still in front, however, but he will have now Jamie Hall with slipstream and with the pace advantage that he showed over the Duttingerhoer. He is diving immediately into the slipstream of Steve Hogan, who very smartly tries to keep it all the way on the right side. Does he go to the left side to defend? He stays on the right side, They will have no draft of Hugh Haycox in front of them, who's going a little bit slower. Jamie Hall has to go to the inside, but there's also Steve Hogan, but now around the outside he does it. Philip Lake gets by, or Jamie Hall gets by him. The last possible moment, he gets rid of Steve Hogan. He gets a position, but is he close enough to also threaten Hugh Haycox, who's just a little bit in front? Around the last corner they go. It is Hugh Haycox who will finish in P9. That isn't Jamie Hall. He gets a P10, winning 10 position in this race. Steve Hogan, what a great race, what a great battle he had. He has to settle for a position outside of the top 10.
Behind them, more drivers cycling in. Ian Haycox, the father of Hugh Haycox, is just finishing up his lap, finishing only 3 positions back in 12th place. He'll be followed by Ang and Spitzer, who are coming in. Glenn Backless has left Jasmine Beach behind since we last looked at that battle. We never even mentioned it was very hot out here today, 114 degrees on the track, so incredibly slippery on the surface for everybody. As the last of them work their way in, I think it's worth us stepping away to take a break here on the Global Sim Racing channel. We'll try and gather our thoughts before we talk to the drivers in the driver interviews. We'll bring you the official results, and on screen, you can see all the upcoming races here on the Global Sim Racing channel. Welcome back to the Nürburgring. The Nordschleife saw the Lotus 49s tackle it today. The Grand Prix Legend Series in round 7 of the season. And even though it was a higher turnout, we had a lot of drivers that might not be normal runners here in the series show up. It was still our regulars who managed to take away the top spots, including our driver who has won every single race so far this season, Michel Dudignon. Rob Olenek actually took to the lead, but didn't manage to lead a lap this race. He finished in second, 21 seconds behind. Eduardo Prado had to fight for this third spot with Tommy Unhola, who finished fourth. It was a tussle all 5 laps between them. Steve Bycroft got a top 5 with Ove Trangerade finishing in 6th position. He was fighting with Gary Teal for much of the race, but once he got by Gary, that was lights out for that position. Gary wound up in 7th. Phil Lake was 8th, and Hugh Haycox, who was fighting for part of the time, took 9th. He was just ahead of Jamie Hall in 10th.
Steve Hogan is the first driver outside of the top 10. He was in the top 10 for basically the whole race except the last few corners. Great battles on screen with him. However, Ian Haycock is not a driver we saw a lot on screen today. He finishes and started the race in P12. Andrew Eng, I think that he's our hard charger of today. Started in P26, finishes in P13. Great result from Andrew Eng there. Craig Spitzer, he had a spin last lap, finishes in P14. However, then a good battle we actually saw on screen when we were on the break between Jasmine Beats and Glenn Baculis. Two drivers finished within half a second of each other, finish also P15 and 16 respectively. Colin Bending comes home in P17 just in front of Logan Walker, and Robert Reynolds is the last driver on the lead lap. Then Andrew Barry, he rounds out the top 20, one lap down.
Just want to give a bit of credit to Robert Reynolds. Usually we don't get to say that he finishes on the lead lap, so a huge round of applause for the number 33 car. Johnny Bell finishes 21st with Giulio for Colin in 22nd. Daniel Sadro with problems had to settle for 23rd place. Nenad Ivanovic was one of the ones involved. In fact, he was the one that essentially started the incident we saw in the first lap. He finishes 24th. David Rossi, P25. Andre Bruno with a 26th position, and Alberto Pellegrini 27th, and it's Colin Coker in 28th, 4 laps down. Philip Urquhart, we saw him stop at the side of the track. He finishes 29th. 30th it goes to Masson Pascal. And then the last of our drivers, pretty much all DNFs, John Ambrose, Telmo Almiral, Jody Sellen, Don Good, Douglas Waite, and Nicholas Schmaltz round out your field today. We have at least one driver to talk to who has enough breath to talk after that. Tommy Unhola, who gave us a vast majority of the action that we followed today. Tommy, what a battle between you and Eduardo. You were two of the few drivers who actually seemed evenly matched on pace out there.
Oh yeah, it was really fun, and yeah, good that we were evenly matched. And sometimes on this track, you happen to be on kind of alone, and it's very hard to pass. But it was fun this time.
When you saw that you had 34 some odd drivers, 36 drivers signed up for this race, what were you thinking? Because even in this series, we usually don't see this many cars at the ring.
Oh yeah, that was a lot, and yeah, luckily it's so big track that I was thinking that there might not be blue flags on the race and without accidents, and people usually are so good with those that would not be problem, and I didn't have any issues with anything, so it was fine this time. But on smaller track, it would have been a bit more scary, I think.
Tommy, also from my side of the booth, congratulations with that awesome race on screen. Now you set a big track, a lot of corners, 150 plus. You actually seem to have some favorite corners. First of all, the first corner, that was one of the corners that you really tried several times to make that overtaking move on Prado stick. Was it really a place on the track that you felt you were quicker than him, or was it just like the easiest place to actually try an overtaking maneuver?
Yeah, well, I think it would have been possible, but I braked a bit later than him. But problem was I braked on the bump every time, and one lap I think I was turning and slided across the track. Sorry for that. It was my mistake, but luckily I don't think it mattered in race, and I just lost more time. So, but yeah, I kind of tried there. First one was kind of practice try, but I would only have done if he messed up braking or something, as it's kind of risky. And yeah, like it almost happened accident, but luckily we survived it and it was fine.
Well, thanks for coming and talking to us afterwards. Commiserations that you didn't get onto the podium, but a 4th place is still going to be a nice haul of points today. A well done race here at the ring.
Oh yeah, thank you, and it was fun. So see you guys later.
That was Tommy Unhola, who finishes 4th today. Up next, we've got Phil Lake. Johan, I think 18th to 8th is a pretty nice feat.
Absolutely. Phil, welcome to the booth. A great result from you, winning 10 positions. Now, my initial question actually is, you seem to have great race pace out on track. What exactly happened in qualifying that you only started P18?
I missed the qualifying. Is what happened. I forgot that until yesterday. I forgot that it was separate for Nords, and then both times I just missed it by a couple of minutes. So I didn't have a qualifying time. Turned into a fun race though because of that.
Yeah, absolutely. You had a lot of overtaking maneuvers that we actually saw on track. What was really your strategy going down? Was it basically just waiting around till the other people in front would inevitably make a mistake and you go past them, or were you really attacking every time, trying to go left and right? Because we heard Tommy just say that it was really difficult to pass too.
Yeah. My strategy going in was sort of keep it clean and I hope everyone else makes mistakes, but nobody really did. It didn't seem like there was too much attrition at all. So at least not in front of me anyway. So then my strategy became to sort of put as much pressure on the guy in front as I could. So just stay close and try and force them into little mistakes.
That worked out with a P8 in the end. Now, one thing that we saw after the race was the incredible track temperature at the end. It was 46 degrees Celsius, over 100 degrees Fahrenheit when the race was over. Did that bother you in any way? Was it extra slippery out there, or did you set up your car in such a way that you could counteract it a little bit?
We had similar temperatures in the race last night. I did make a few setup changes just up to the drive ramp on the diff just so you can get on throttle with a bit more confidence without wheel spinning everywhere. So yeah, just little adjustments for the weather, but you have to be so careful here anyway. There's a lot of the lap that you're not even on full throttle.
Absolutely. Well, congratulations at least with that awesome recovery race, winning 10 positions in the race, finishing P8. Thank you for talking with us, Philippe Lake.
Yeah, thanks guys.
Phil Lake with a nice climb. I can understand where he's coming from, as I have certainly missed qualifying on some races where they have that separate qualifying. Used to be normal here in iRacing, but now they have gone to the attached qualifying for most. So force of habit. But that's going to close us out for the day with the last of our interviews. So we want to thank the Lotus 49 community for another season of coverage, bringing us back for all the excitement here in the Grand Prix Legends series. And also a thank you to iRacing. If you have not subscribed to IESN, make sure and go to their YouTube page. You'll know if you haven't because the subscribe button will be big and red. Click on it and you get all of the Grand Prix Legends series in your YouTube feed. Thanks to companies that provide the software and hardware for our broadcasts listed here on your screen. And additional thanks go to June Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of her great work. Thanks to the team today, Johan, Sean, and Dougie. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. We're also on social media. Our Twitter is at GSR Channel, Facebook at Global Sim Racing Channel, and Instagram at GSRC_Graham. Next week, a much shorter track for these drivers, but still tricky. Mosport, Saturday, August 3rd, a week from now. That'll be at 9:30 a.m. Eastern. We also have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar. But until next time, race clean, race hard. We'll see you on the track.